I am back in our social studies book. I'm starting on page 265 in a new chapter. This is chapter 8, and it is all about government. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was younger, the word government or the thought of talking about the topic of government was not exciting to me. And I'll be honest with you now. I don't know if it's exciting to me now, but I will have to tell you that as a grown up, it has become more interesting to me. Sometimes it is frustrating because there are so many different opinions about what should be done in our country, in our state, in our counties, in our townships. Different people all have different opinions, which we have the right to do, right? That's one of our rights as citizens. And we have the right to talk about it because we have freedom of speech, which we learned about this week. But we're going to spend a little time talking about government because that is what third graders ought to do. If we were together, we'd be making a cool tree with the branches of government and we'd spend more time, but you hopefully can get a little taste. So I'm going to start reading on 266, the structure of government. The Constitution is the plan of government for the United States. That plan is based on the idea that government gets its authority or power from the people. By voting, people give government leaders the authority to make decisions and take action for them. In the United States, voters elect leaders to run 3 levels of government: local, state, and national. The 3 levels handle different kinds of problems for areas that are different sizes. So local, for example, for us would not be a big city government, but our local government would be our townships and our county. I live in Murray Township. We have a town board. We have a small group of people that meet and make decisions about our roads and where the culverts need to go and who should do the plowing and the grading. That's as exciting as it gets at our local government level. We might decide how much money to give to the fire department because that is something that needs to be paid for by the government. The county board, you live in Sawyer County, I live in Russ County. They make decisions that affect our county, like things about our roads again. And roads are important, right? Transportation and decisions maybe about the county jail. Russ County's jail is in Ladysmith and Sawyer County's jail is in Hayward. And we have police officers. Hayward has city police officers. There are Sawyer County officers. There are Russ County officers. There are Ladysmith police officers. And those people are all part of our local governing. And then we have the state government. Of course, we live in the state of Wisconsin. We have a governor. Right now, our governor's name is Tony Evers. He is Democratic. The Republicans in Wisconsin are not always happy with what the Democratic governor does and vice versa. Before Tony Evers was our governor, we had a governor whose name was Scott Walker, and he was a Republican. And again, sometimes we have a lot of squabbling about which side is right. And sadly, we take sides a lot and it can get kind of ugly. But the state governor makes decisions that affect our state. For example, Tony Evers, our governor, was the one that decided to close Wisconsin schools in March when we went home on spring break. And I was barely home. I don't even think I'd gotten home yet. And I heard the message that he had decided to close schools because of the coronavirus. That was a state decision that was made by each state. All right, levels of government. A local government governs just one community, such as a city or town. Each of the 50 states is run by a state government. The national government is also called the federal government. It makes laws for the whole nation. Each level of government must obey the Constitution, that very, very important document that was written at the beginning of our nation when the United States became a country. Purposes of the government. All 3 levels of government make laws to keep people safe and to protect their rights and property. However, all 3 levels of government have their own responsibilities or jobs to do. Each one provides different government services. A government service is work that the government does for the people in its area. People pay for these services with their taxes. And I believe this year we did have some discussions about taxes and how we feel about paying taxes and maybe how our families feel about paying taxes, money taken out of our paychecks, or money that we pay because we own land, or money that we pay every time we buy certain things at the store. All of those taxes that are taken out and collected and sent to different governments to be used in sometimes ways that we approve of and sometimes ways we don't. But yet we have to obey the law and pay our taxes. So we did have that discussion, I think. It's been a while. All right, so we have local, state, and national government, the federal government. Now, the head of our national government is our president. And right now, the president of the United States is Donald Trump, and our vice president is Mike Pence. Coming in November, we will have an election, and Donald Trump will be up for re-election, trying to be re-elected for 4 more years. And I think we mentioned this. Joe Biden is right now appearing to be the Democratic front runner who will be running against him. And those are our 2 main political parties in this country. So the president of the United States would be considered the most powerful government official in our country. But he is not like a king or a dictator that has the rights to do whatever he or she wants to do, but does have quite a bit of authority and decision-making ability there. Okay, now there are also 3 branches of government, and here this is the 3 branches of the national government. There is what's called the legislative branch that make the laws, all right? This is the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and our government officials that meet there, our senators meet there, and they work on making laws. The executive branch, that's your president, who lives and works out of the White House, which is also in Washington, D.C. It's the executive branch's responsibility to carry out the laws. So these 2 places are both in Washington, D.C. You can go in this one and tour it by getting in line and waiting your turn to get in there, but you only see a very small part of it. The White House is much harder to get into. I have not been inside of the White House. You have to get tickets like months in advance on very locked down tours. They're very careful, of course, because some very important people work in that building. Then there is the judicial branch, which makes sure that the laws are fair. In Washington, D.C. is what's called the Supreme Court building. Beautiful old marble building, and the highest court in our entire country is there. And they only hear very, very important cases that are being appealed from other areas of the country. This group of judges, once they are chosen and designated and appointed as a judge on the Supreme Court, they are there for the rest of their lives. They are not elected. They are actually chosen by the president. And so when a president, for example, so Donald Trump is a Republican, and if there is an opening on the Supreme Court, someone retires, the president gets to pick the next person. So a Republican president will probably pick a more conservative judge. And if we have a Democratic president and it's time to fill a spot, they will probably pick a more Democratic, what we would maybe call more liberal judge. And so the president has some influence on who ends up being on this court. Although these judges are definitely supposed to interpret the law very careful, it really shouldn't matter whether they are Republicans or Democrats. But that's an interesting discussion, and probably one that you'll understand better as you get older. The branches of government, kind of like branches on a tree. The Constitution divides the national government into 3 branches or parts. The 3 branches are the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. These branches are separate but connected, like the branches of a tree. Each branch of government has a different job to do. The legislative branch makes laws. The executive branch sees that the laws are obeyed. The judicial branch judges whether the laws are fair and based on the Constitution. The judicial branch also settles conflicts between citizens and businesses. Now, at the time this book was printed, look who our president was, George W. Bush. And he, at that time, was the leader of the executive branch. What is cool about the way our government's set up is it's balanced. So that means that these two branches make sure that the president doesn't become someone that does whatever he or she wants to, and no matter what anybody thinks, right? Like they have the power and ability to kind of balance out the decisions that are here. So if there's some disagreement, it doesn't mean one person gets to make all the choices and make all the laws. We would be more like have a dictator for a leader if that happened, and that's not a great place to be. Our government is set up to be balanced, checks and balances, so that we can't have one person just take over control. But it also can cause some frustration because, for example, if you have a Republican president like we do now, and you have there's what's called there's the United States Senate, and then there's the House of Representatives. Right now, the United States Senate is the majority are Republicans, but in the House of Representatives, which come from all the states, the majority is Democratic. So the House of Representatives thinks one way, and then the Senate and the president will think another way. So right now it's kind of lopsided, but it always will be. And then the Supreme Court, I think right now does tend to lean more conservative to the Republican side, so that can happen. And then if the House of Representatives was more Republican majority too, then the Republicans could get more done, things that they want. But because there's a different opinion coming out of the House of Representatives, then it makes it hard sometimes to agree, and things don't get done as quickly. But we have that ability then to kind of keep things in check, and it makes us, maybe forces us to be more careful about our decisions. State governments and most local governments also have three branches. The branches of the state and local levels also make laws and make sure that laws are obeyed and judge whether laws are fair. For example, at the county, in each county seat, so Ladysmith for Rusk County, Hayward for Sawyer County, not only are there jails, but there are courthouses. And you could get called for jury duty if you live in your county and are a registered voter and you are over 18. My husband is supposed to serve on jury duty in June. If the cases actually come to trial and aren't canceled, sometimes they get canceled right before the trial date, he may be sitting on a jury for a part of a week or whatever, maybe more, to listen and to help decide some cases. So those things do happen right in Hayward and right in Ladysmith. And those county boards and things do, and the town boards make our local decisions. So in summary, the three levels of government are local, state, and national. Each level provides services for people in its area. Each level of government also has three branches. Each branch of government does different jobs. That's a lot of information. This is a lot of heavy information. I will try to find some things to maybe make this more understandable too, because it was a lot to take in. But thanks for tuning in. You've heard some new words, hopefully a little bit interesting.